us it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Somalia's forces continue to battle al-Shabaab militants in Hotel Siege. Former Comoros president sentenced to life in prison for high treason. And in Europe, body of man recovered by rescuers 2 days after deadly landslide in Italy, in Italian island of Ischia. My name is Tunde Ido. Officials in Somalia says al-Shabaab militants are holed up in a hotel room surrounded by government forces. Gunfire and explosions could still be heard more than 12 hours after the Villa Rose Hotel was stormed by the jihadist group. The National Security Agency says at least 4 people have been killed and government officials are amongst the injured. According to reports, al-Shabaab targeted the hotel because several ministers are known to stay there. Eyewitnesses said shots were also fired at the nearby presidential palace. Al-Shabaab has intensified attacks against civilians and military targets since the government recently launched what it called all-out war against the group. The African Union mission in Somalia praised what it called the swift security response to the attack. Leaders from the East Africa region are holding talks in Kenya aimed at ending conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. In his opening address, Kenya's former president Uhuru Kenyatta, who is a mediator, appealed to all sides to give peace a chance. Last week, regional leaders agreed on a ceasefire following intense fighting between DR Congo's army and the M23 rebel group in North Kivu province. The situation was reportedly calm over the weekend. A spokesman for the rebels said they were not invited to attend the latest talks in Kenya. DR Congo's government has accused Rwanda of backing the group, which Kigali denies. Elsewhere, Kazakhstan's leader Kassym-Jomart Tokayev has met with Russia's Vladimir Putin in Kremlin. The allies appear to be attempting to reinforce ties after disagreement over Ukraine. It is the Kazakh leader's first foreign trip since being inaugurated for a second term last week, with the 69-year-old saying his choice to visit Moscow was symbolic. Meanwhile, Russia has welcomed the Vatican offer to provide a negotiating platform to resolve the Ukraine conflict. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov made this known during a press conference, adding that the position of Kiev made the proposal impossible. Pope Francis had last week reiterated that the Vatican was ready to do anything possible to mediate and put an end to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. In the meantime, head of the Center for Civil Liberties, an organization awarded a Nobel Peace Prize in 2022, says there is a need to provide Ukraine with weapons to stop long-lasting crimes in occupied territories. Ukrainian-born Alexandra Machikuk, who has been documenting human rights violations and war crimes, expresses the need for a new international tribunal to hold Russian war criminals accountable. She insisted that Ukraine will never surrender.
It was an international conference in Berlin, and they invited me to open the conference with a speech. I remember with whom, but we have a program, and we will go through this program. I will be in other countries for these events. When your country under attack and your relatives, your family are there, you want to be with your family.
Of course. Well, that's perfect for me. You can actually just stand up and go in that direction.
So we document human pain, and it's very hard. And it's changed not only like our work of our organization, but our lives. because this pain is something like materialized. When sometimes I have like expression that it's burned us out. This is a question which I ask to myself. For whom do we document all these war crimes for? Because now we face with a situation which I call accountability gap.
A court in Comoros has handed down a life sentence for high treason to former President Hamid Abdullah Sambi. He was convicted of selling passports to stateless people living in the Gulf and had been accused of embezzling millions of dollars. Citing an unfair trial, Sambi refused to attend the hearing at the State Security Court, whose ruling cannot be appealed. Sambi, who is an arch-rival of the Comoros President Azali Assoumani, had already spent 4 years behind bars before he faced trial. He pushed through a law in 2008 allowing the sale of passports for the East African island nation for high fees. His lawyer said there was no evidence of missing money. The World Health Organization has announced that the viral monkeypox disease will be known as Mpox after complaints over racist and stigmatizing language linked to the virus name. WHO said the new name Mpox was decided after lengthy discussions between experts, countries, and the general public, adding that the old term will be used alongside the new one for a year before being phased out. The UN health body added that the new name can easily be used in English and as well as other languages. WHO stresses the need to minimize unnecessary negative impact on trade, travel, tourism, or animal welfare, and to avoid causing offense to any cultural, social, national, or ethnic group. Human monkeypox was first identified in 1970 and named after the disease caused by the virus was discovered in captive monkeys more than a decade before. Turning to Asia, police in Shanghai detained at least 2 people today at a site that has seen protests 2 nights in a row. A long line of blue barriers has been placed along the road where demonstrators had gathered. The protests against strict COVID measures have spread to some of China's biggest cities over the weekend. People gathered in the capital Beijing and Shanghai, where some called for President Xi Jinping to resign. People are angry at Mr. Xi's zero-COVID approach, which involves mass testing, quarantines, and snap lockdown. Meanwhile, about 30 demonstrators have taken part in a solidarity gathering near the Chinese embassy in Tokyo. This comes as protests flare up across China, calling for greater political freedoms and an end to COVID lockdown. People are angry at President Xi Jinping's zero-COVID approach, which involves mass testing, quarantines, and snap lockdown. In the United States, early voting is underway in Georgia in what promises to be an intense week and a half of campaigning between Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker and incumbent Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock. Walker and Warnock were forced to keep campaigning through the December 6 runoff after neither candidate won more than 50% of the vote in their closely watched midterm general election. Warnock cast his early vote at a polling station in Atlanta, Georgia, and a win for him will mean Democrats increase their razor-thin majority in the Senate, while a Walker victory will keep their total to 50 seats with the tiebreaker vote from Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris.
All right, hold on, let me get
Reverend Fred Taylor, civil rights leader.
this man right
Reverend
here.
Fred Taylor.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Yes, thank you, sir.
Alabama State. Mr. Taylor. Mr. Taylor. Okay, fill out everything that's highlighted. The date of the runoff is December 6th. Today's date is.
You doing okay today?
The European Union Police Agency has dismantled a huge drug super cartel that controlled a third of Europe's cocaine. Europol disclosed this in a statement, adding that the huge international operation seized 30 tons of the drug and led to arrests in Belgium, France, the Netherlands, and Spain. Europol said drug pins considered as high-value targets by the agency had come together to form what was known as a super cartel, which controlled around one-third of the cocaine trade in Europe. It added that Dubai had arrested 2 high-value suspects linked to France, 2 connected to the Netherlands, and another 2 linked to Spain. The Hague-based organization revealed that 10 people were arrested in Belgium, 6 in France, and 13 in Spain. You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after the break.
The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her Imperial Majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history.
You're welcome back to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. 2 days after the deadly landslide on the Italian island of Ischia, where a wave of mud and debris crashed through a small town, the body of a man has been recovered by rescuers. According to the Italian Agency for Fire and Rescue Service, this brings the death toll to at least 8. 4 others are still missing, and AOF emergency has declared by the government last night. A landslide in Cameroon's capital, Yaoundé, has killed at least 14 people. The regional governor said those who died had been attending a funeral. Rescue teams were still searching for bodies and survivors yesterday evening. Residents say several families of mourners had gathered under large tents on waste ground at the top of a hill when part of the ground beneath them gave way. And in South Africa, armed robbers invaded a Johannesburg church and stole from the congregants at gunpoint over the weekend. According to reports, the gunmen stopped the sermon before proceeding to collect cash and valuables from the people inside the Johannesburg Central SDA church. The moment the gunmen stopped the preaching was captured on the church live camera. The church leaders later posted a message offering consolation to the members and asking members to attend a counseling service. The provincial police chief condemned the incident, telling the local media that they will do everything to arrest the suspects.
Every time he had an appointment with somebody, the spirit would lead him through that particular place. Why would Jesus go to
Japanese journalist Toru Kobuta has called on Tokyo to put more pressure on Myanmar's junta and accept refugees fleeing the Southeast Asian country. He said this at a press conference after being released from Myanmar in a prisoner amnesty. Kobuta spent 3.5 months in prison after being detained near an anti-government rally in Yangon. A video posted on the Instagram page of Iranian actress Sohila Golstani shows a group of Iranian actors staging a silent protest without their headscarves in a gesture of solidarity with demonstrations sparked by the death of Masha Amini. In a video, the actor and director, wearing black, walks into the shot and turns around to reveal she is wearing no headscarf. 9 other women then join Golstani to make the same gesture, as do 5 men. Around 36 police officers were injured as a police station was attacked in the southern Indian state of Kerala after protests against the construction of the country's largest port escalated into violence. According to a senior state police official, the mob gathered at the police station yesterday evening and demanded the release of a few persons who were arrested in another case. Several protesters were injured and some police vehicles were damaged. The police have deployed around 900 personnel to the area. The port is being built by Adani Port and Suez Limited, which is owned by Asia's richest man, Gautam Adani. For about 3 months, hundreds of people from the local fishing community had been protesting against the $900 million project, alleging the construction was causing coastal erosion and destroying their livelihoods. The company has, however, denied this, stating that the project is in compliance with environmental laws and that sea erosion occurring due to climate change. Into the world of sports, Cameroon kept their hopes of reaching the World Cup last 16 alive as they battled back from 2 goals down to draw a 6-goal thriller with Serbia in Group G. Serbia looked to be cruising to a win that will have put them in a strong position to progress from the group. However, the indomitable Lions roared back thanks to Vincent Abubakar's superb lob and Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting's equalizer 3 minutes later. Both sides lost their opening match, so this result lifts them 2 points adrift of Brazil and Switzerland. And in Belgium, a day after football fans rioted in the center of Brussels, signs of the unrest remained on the streets as cleaners removed the last of the debris. Dozens of fans smashed shop windows, threw fireworks and touched vehicles yesterday, following Morocco's shock 2-0 World Cup win over Belgium in Qatar. Police said around 11 people have been arrested. Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. Officials in Somalia says Al-Shabaab militants are holed up in a hotel room surrounded by government forces. A court in Comoros has handed down a life sentence for high treason to former President Ahmed Abdullah Sambe. 2 days after the deadly landslide on the Italian island of Ischia, where a wave of mud and debris crashed through a small town, the body of a man has been recovered by rescuers. Don't forget to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on YouTube at Western Spring Television. I am Tunde Idowu.